Hello, one and all. Welcome back. We don't have an episode of Kamen Rider Saber today because Saber is dead. We are now on the newest Kamen Rider season, season 32 overall, and the third season of the Reiwa Era in Kamen Rider Revice. This is the start of a whole new season of Kamen Rider, bringing all the excitement, energy, and all that kind of stuff as we have the first premiere episode of Kamen Rider Revice today. And that's what we're going to be talking about today. So, let's talk about it. Our episode begins with a pair of Phoenix officers. One, George Kirazaki, and the other one, I don't know his name yet. I think his name is... his name is Yujiro Wakabayashi. I really hope I pronounced that right, because I keep mispronouncing names. Anyway, they're talking about an incident that took place in 1971, where they discovered a mysterious stamp that, once used, can cause someone to form a contract with the demon. We are then quickly introduced to the concept of the dead men. I believe either people who have formed a contract with demons, or demons in the form of humans. Anyway, we're introduced to these three rather quickly, but we only get one named, and that is Aguilera. Interestingly enough, their base is a club. Like, a club, because they have a bunch of people dancing and partying in there, and it's like, that's probably the most energetic villains we've had in a while. And their basic plan is to cause chaos in a human world to awaken their leader in Gifu. Because Aguilera is Gifu's fiance, and she wants to get her husband back, or fiance back. So we then cut away to the dead men, away from the dead men, and we visit the Igarashi family, who run a old bathhouse. We are introduced to the eldest son, Iki Igarashi, who is has a really strong love of soccer. We're introduced to the various regulars of the Igarashi bathhouse. I don't remember if that's the name of the bathhouse or not. And Ikki has a voice in his head. This is the voice of what will later be known as Vice. We're quickly introduced to the other members. We have Daiji Igarashi, the father. Sakura Igarashi, Daiji is the second son, Sakura is the third child / only daughter, and that is Yumiko. Yumiko is the mother of the Igarashi family, and that leaves Genta as the father of the Igarashi family, who is he has a bit of a gimmick of trying to make videos. I don't know if he's just making videos for sake of making videos, or if he's like a YouTuber or something. But he has a habit of trying to make videos and slacking off work because of it. They have a fun family dynamic. We also hear that Daiji is a member of Phoenix, and he's up for promotion to a captain, which the others are super excited for as they gather on the family hot pot. Vice is around and causes trouble for Ikki, who kind of has to cover for that. And we quickly get a shot of the brothers bonding in the bathtub. He's no bathhouse, so they might as well take a bath. Where Daiji asks Ikki why he never followed his dreams of playing soccer. Which is kind of a super important plot drop. And I'm just like, oh, hopefully this gets explained later. But Ikki basically says he wants to protect the bathhouse and the family. So I'm assuming something happened there. Anyway, Ikki, the family gathers, well, minus the father, because he has to watch the bathhouse, to watch Daiji's promotion ceremony, only for the dead men to be probably pretty proactive and absolutely wreck the place, as they show up with their minions and a mammoth dead man. As it turns out, George and Phoenix as a whole want to actually ask Daiji to become Revice, or use the Revice system that they created to fight against the dead men, which is why he's being promoted to captain. But in the middle of the chaos, the other commander, who's on staff right now, tries to take the Revice driver because there's so much chaos going around, but he either doesn't meet the right qualifications, or he's not strong enough to use it, and this causes his demon to bust out in the form of a Rex dead man. Daiji grabs the driver and has a bit of a mini panic attack because he sees the commander, who looks super dead. Like, he might just be unconscious, but he looks super dead right now. Has a mini panic attack before dropping it again, and then Ikki takes out the stamp. He's convinced to use it to let Vice out, who I'll talk about that in a second, but Vice gets out because Ikki uses the stamp. And it turns out at first to be a semi-good idea because Vice attacks the other dead men, but he then quickly decides to eat Ikki's mom for no reason. But in order to stop Vice and get control over him, George tells Ikki to use the driver, and so Ikki uses it to transform into Kamen Rider Revice. So Revice has a gimmick, and probably one of the most unique gimmicks we've had in a long time, where he's not one rider, but two riders, Kamen Rider Revi and Kamen Rider Revice. I think I talked about that when we talked about Saber's last episode. But yeah, he is split between the two riders. So they both together are Revice as a whole, but separate they are Revi and Vice. And everyone's making a joke. $10 says that their final form combines the two, and they become full Revice as their final form. We'll see. Anyway, Ikki, at first, Vice's like, hey, you gotta fight me? But he's like, no, I'll fight the dead men first. And they have a really cool fight scene. We get to see a lot of some cool shots. It's an honestly pretty cool fight. Pretty cool debut fight for our new riders. At the end of the fight, George tells them to become Revice, and names Vice, because Vice didn't have a name up until this point, which that's pretty cool. That's a cool detail. Vice gets his name not because he is named Vice, but because he is Kamen Rider Vice, which is pretty cool. And it's a nice detail. But Ikki decides to turn down the offer, and he'll check on his mom, who was injured in the fight. And it's kind of funny because her whole family's around her. Her question is, "Y'all better not be shirking off work," and it's kind of funny. It just shows who she is as a character, and I kind of love it. And that ends the episode with Vice kind of commenting on what's going on, at least a little bit. And that's the episode. Pretty simple, basic starter episode where you're introduced very quickly to our main villains, our main characters, the conflict as a whole, what the villains actually want. It's a very quick introduction. Kind of reminds me of a lot of Rider introductions where it's a very fast, here's this, here's that, here's the introduction stuff, and a lot of the details are hashed out in episode 2. But there's a few bits that are actually dropped here in episode 1, so let's get into that, shall we? So, quick things. The Revice suits are suits. I really like them. I've seen a lot of images of the suits since the premiere. A lot of people have gravitated towards them, especially the Revi suit. It's very pink, and I'm kind of down for that. And the Vice suit is kind of like inverted colors. I mean, it has the pink accents to it, but it's a mostly black suit. Pretty cool. Like both their suits. I'm more driving towards the Revi suit because it looks more like a Kamen Rider suit. The Vice suit does look like a Kamen Rider suit, but it looks different enough because it's basically the way the transformation works. Revi gets the suit formed around him, almost kind of akin to a Splash Driver in build, where it's like the liquid or energy from the stamp wraps around him to form the suit. And the Vice suit is the I guess access parts of the stamp that they use for transformation that forms an armor that Vice grabs and puts on. It's a pretty cool, unique gimmick for the pair, and I really like it. This also means that every fight's going to be a double battle. I mean, not every fight, because I imagine they're going to have to double team some of the bigger bads. But, every fight's going to essentially be a 2-on-1, which is honestly pretty fun. The choreography is going to be pretty fun to watch with that. Next, let's talk about Ikki. Ikki is a pretty good start to a main character. He very much reminds me of Kota in a way from a Gaim, at least in his early episodes, where he's someone who's dedicated to a life path or just, he knows what he wants at this point in his life, or he basically has an idea of what he needs to do right now. And in Kota's case in Gaim, he needed to earn money to help out himself and his sister. In Ikki's case, he has to protect the family bathhouse and the family. He becomes Revice to protect his family, and I'm assuming something happened to make him like this. Again, as mentioned in the earlier part, he is asked why he never followed up his dreams of playing soccer, and even his younger brother Daiji says that he could have been great at it, but he gave it up and decided to focus on the family and the bathhouse. So I'm assuming something happened there, or it was the older brother has to make a sacrifice for the greater whole, the family thing. We don't know because it's not episode 1, but hoping that it will be fleshed out over the series. Speaking of the family, I like the Igarashi family. They have a nice family unit feel, obviously, and they play off each other pretty well. I also like the fact that they already know that he's Revice. Because now they're in the middle of the shit, and he transforms literally right in front of them and several of the regulars who are also there because they want to support Daiji. I kind of like that. It's like, just fuck it, transform. It's kind of fun to not have to deal with the sick identity mess and what that will cause. Because Daiji is just like, Ikki's like, gotta protect the family. Daiji is... he's not really done anything yet. He's just kind of been there, but I like that he's at least thinking of his brother, and I wonder if he's going to have thoughts about the fact that he could have been Revice, or if he's basically going to pull a, I forget his actual name, but the second birth from O's, if his story's going to follow his path a bit, where he's a little bit jealous that he didn't get to become a writer until he becomes one. Like, there are a number of characters already who scream, I can be the secondary writer for the series, because Vice is considered part of Revice, so they're both considered the same writer, at least the main writer. Like, Daiji screams, I can be a secondary writer. Sakura, the sister, hasn't done anything, but she can already scream it, because we see her actually, because she mentions that she trains in karate. I don't know if that means competitively or self-defensively yet, but she's training in karate, and we actually see her fighting off some of the mooks by herself, at least to the point where she can defend herself. Not necessarily the bigger monsters, but, just the standard enemy mooks. So, that's pretty cool. I hope she gets to do more, and this doesn't become a background character, although she probably screams background character. Yukimo, or Yuki, Mama Igarashi, she is pretty fun. She hasn't done anything really, but she basically has this more serious-minded side to her rather fanciful husband. And they have a fun dynamic, that whole more serious, more carefree dynamic, which is pretty cool. And I like the fact that the father was super excited that his wife woke up when she was there in the hospital, like his kid. Like, he had to be like, calm down, Dad, get off Mom for a second. And he's just holding her hand after that. That's honestly pretty sweet and a nice detail. As for Phoenix, we obviously don't see much of them. We only get to see the three, George, the commander, Yujiro, and I'm sorry if I mispronounced that, and the other commander who might be dead. Again, he looked super dead after his Dead Man came out. I like George because he is just a massive ball of energy when it comes to this shit. Because it's like, in the middle of the presentation, he just snatches the mic and just goes off on, hey, my dad invented this technology that the Dead Men are using to fuck us over, so we decided to use our own technology to fuck them over. Before the other commander has to steal it back from him to get the presentation back on track. But, George is a typical, I'm the one who invents all the crazy shit, character. And as we know from his character profile, he is apparently a massive Kamen Rider fan, because in this universe, the other Kamen Rider series exist as television shows, and he decided to bring them to life. So, at least in a way. As for our main villains, the Dead Men, so far, they're interesting, I could give you that. Again, their main goal is to cause chaos to awaken their boss, which is a very classic Toku villain plot, because there are a lot of like old school Toku villains who just have the we're just causing chaos to awaken our boss, and then once the boss awakens, he'll become the final boss. I mean, it's not even old school, because a lot of, even someone from a few years ago, Toku villains use the same thing. I'm really reminded of Kuryuger, who this gives a bit of a feel to. For those of you who don't know, Kuryuger is the original Sentai that Dino Charge was based off of, and it took a completely different turn. Where basically the villains and Kuryuger actually had to cause chaos and all sorts of stuff to try to awaken their boss, named D-Boss, funny enough. And honestly speaking, this is also the original Metsubo Jinrai scheme, because like early 01, their scheme was, let's cause chaos by stealing the singularity data from all these different human gears in order to try to awaken the Ark. At least that was the early 01 plot. But the Dead Men seem to have a very similar thing. They want to awaken their boss in Gifu, and and so they have to cause chaos as a result of that. They also have stolen away various stamps that I'm pretty sure we're gonna pull. Like, this happens a lot, but I really want to say they pull an O's, where Revice basically gets the stamps back from them and uses them to transform. And that could be the special 10 stamps that were mentioned in the Saber episode where Revice made his cameo, where George mentioned the special 10 stamps. Now let's talk about Vice. Vice is interesting because the series already explains that people have demons inside of them, like literal demons. But Vice is already more active than most demons, because we don't see anyone else respond to their demons, and Vice is already literally talking in Ikki's head and occasionally projecting himself out to cause, to basically make people think Ikki's crazy, at least a little bit crazy. This literally just happens in the episode. It just seems to come out of nowhere. And I kind of hope they explain what the deal is with that. At first, I was thinking Vice might have been some ancient evil that might have been contained in the Rex stamp or something. At least that's what I thought early game with just the episode previews. But no, he is literally just the demon side of Ikki, quite literally. And I'm curious as to why he's different from the other demons. Like, I thought he might have had a connection with the Deadmen in a similar vein to Ankh and the other greed, because this gives me a very more manic Ankh vibe, in the fact that we're obviously going to play off, can Ikki trust him? Vice did try to eat Ikki's mom, and I'm not over that, because this feels so random. It's like, Ikki's fighting, and he's like, oh, I guess I'm gonna eat this woman as my meal. And it's like, wait, what? Like, it just feels so random. I gotta love how weird it feels. Thankfully, unlike the Saber episode, Vice is mucking to the camera, because he can do the whole Deadpool fourth wall break thing, is really toned down, because he just talks to the camera every so often. Like, I'm hoping it doesn't become that much of a thing, but I imagine it's going to be a thing that he does in the middle of fights, where he just talks to the camera and goes, "What do you think, everyone?" And I'm just like, oh god, please, no. Thankfully, there's nary a fart joke to be seen, but Vice does carry that whole crazy manic energy that, honestly, I kind of like about him. Like, it's an interesting energy to bring to the character, and an interesting take on a writer, because we don't really have a lot of super crazed writers. Like, even when we get to secondary or even villainous writers, we don't have a lot of super crazy ones, and Vice seems to be filling up that niche of being super crazy rampage happy. The closest I could think of is maybe Grease when he gets fired up, but even then that's not 100% like how Vice is, because Vice seems to be like that all the time. So yeah, a lot of stuff gets dropped. I honestly do like the way the series has framed itself. itself. I like the fact that the dead men are an active threat and not just a background threat. Like, they're kind of like Matsubo Jinrai, but instead of having to have premiered after 01 showed up, they're already an active force in the world causing chaos, and as such, the Revice driver, similar to 01, was created to stop them, but this wasn't like 01 where it was a preemptive weapon to be used to stop them. It was in fact a a countermeasure against them after they've already started causing chaos and stolen the various stamps that the Phoenix the Phoenix organization has created. And Phoenix, they might turn out to be a super shady organization later on, just because this is Kamen Rider, and well, this is Tokyo in general, and that seems to be a thing that keeps happening. Or they could be like the Kogami Foundation and seem shady as all fuck, but they'll turn out to be good guys in the end. We don't know yet, but you know what? I'm actually happy with where everything is right now. This was a very solid first episode. There isn't 100% to talk about outside of just introductions to stuff, which is pretty common for a first episode. So hopefully next episode we'll have a bit more meat on the bones of the series. But overall, I say this is a pretty good start. At least it brings the right amount of energy to the series. I know Revice has already started off controversial because of the stuff with Vice's voice actor. He got into some controversy before the series came out, and so there's a lot of people who are basically blacklisting the series because of that. I understand if you do that completely. It is your right to enjoy, consume, and watch whatever you want to. And if an actor or voice actor is doing something you don't like or can't approve of, you're fully in right to just blacklist the show, movie, whatever. It's your choice. I understand. I'm personally going to watch the show because not because I can overlook what he did, but just because if I stopped watching stuff just because one person was shitty on the production of the stuff I like, then there's a lot of movies I honestly can't watch. Like, apparently Avengers, because of the stuff that Joss Whedon apparently did. And I love the first Avengers movie. Age of Ultron not so much, but the first one still holds up, still a masterpiece. So I just use that as an example. I'm not saying that you correlate. If anyone wants to draw connections, I'm just using that as an example of something that was made by or heavily involved someone who was shitty or did something shitty, and it turned out to be a great piece of art or work. It's a similar connotation. But overall, I have to say I liked this episode, and I'm looking forward to episode 2, and I really want to like this series. I really loved 01. I was middling on Saber, and I would really like to love a series again, if you know what I mean. I really would like to have a series to actively look forward to watching, instead of just watching just because I like the fight scenes. Because as much as I dislike Saber, I will admit the fight scenes were always top tier Kino. I imagine the fight scenes are going to continue to be very great in this show, but I would also like to overall enjoy the plot. And yeah, this went on long, but that was the episode and my thoughts on it and series so far. Alright, so this is the outro. I'm going to start adding these a bit. I'm going to try to keep them under 20 seconds, but they might run a bit long. So what did you guys think of the episode? Apparently there's some stuff going on with Revice translations. One is apparently pretty bad. I don't know, the ones I saw seemed pretty good and accurate. Overall, looking forward to another year of Kamen Rider. Obviously, I mean, it's a continuous series, but you know what I mean. I have some other videos. I'm working on basically reviewing all the other Kamen Rider seasons. I'm up to Hibiki. The next one out should be Kabuto by the end of this week. That should be out by the end of the week, and then maybe the Kabuto movie after that. I doubt I'm going to get to Neo Heisei in this year because of my output. But hey, join me on this journey. The link should be on the screen, and I hope everyone has a nice day.